Hey guys, welcome to the next part of this chapter. Today we're going to continue with the horns, and this is the first, I would say, interesting asset that we're going to have to take a look at. So, the first thing I'm noticing is this guys right here. These were the original chains that were hanging from the element, and what we are seeing here is the decimation trying to decimate a low poly mesh, a mesh that was already quite low poly. So, I'm actually just going to delete them. I'm going to delete them, but we need to bring them back because one of the very common issues that I've gotten into throughout the years is I delete something that I know that I'm going to replace later, but then I forget to replace it, and it doesn't work, right? Like we need to bring it back, otherwise we're going to forget, and then the character is going to be incomplete. So we're going to jump real quick to our asset right here. Have here our Thyros, the high poly, not the decimated, the high poly, the big chunky one that we have. And the first thing is we need to set the scene so that it's at the size. Remember that we did a size master. I don't think I saved that one. So just to make sure that the size of the objects that we're exporting is the same, we're going to do the same process. So I'm going to go into the chest, which was the one that we used as a reference. I'm going to go C plugin, scale master, and we're going to use a set scene scale. And it was this one right here. So we just click it, and that should save everything. So now, if we jump to the horns, to that little bit of metal there, this guy's right here. Let's isolate dynamic solo. This is what we need. We don't need a high poly. That's pretty much all we need. It's not going to have any detail. If we add any detail, it's going to be on the texture side of things. As you can see, it's really low on points. So just select this, guys. I'm going to hit export. And I'm going to export this into the retopo. I do want to export this as an FBX. I don't want this guys. So Thyros horn armor chains, that's perfectly fine. And we just export. We go back into Maya. I'm going to say file, import, Thyros horn armor chains, import. And the first thing that I might notice is that they might not be the size that, or in the position that we want. They are the size, but they're not in the position. You guys remember why? This is because when we created this group, we move it this amount of units up. So I need to go back here and just make sure to select the same amount of units. And there we go. So now it matches exactly where it's supposed to be. This guys, I actually want to keep them hard surfacey. I wanna see the bevel edges. So I'm gonna, first of all, I'm gonna assign the basic Lambert material, and then I'm gonna say mesh display, harden edge. Okay? We might need to unlock the edges. Sometimes the normals are locked. So mesh display, unlock normals, and there we go. So that's going to be my my metal bits. That's what I want. And some of you might be like, well, do we need a high poly or not? And the answer is we really don't need a high poly, but it is useful to have one because it's going to give us cleaner bakes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag this into our retopo meshes. I'm just going to change the name to _low. And I'm going to duplicate this. Shift P to get it out of the group. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the whole object and just bevel it. Give it 2 segments and a small fraction so I can get this very nice soft effect. So this effect that we are seeing right now, thanks to this extra bevel, is supposed to be baked down onto this guys right here. Okay, now this guys, of course, are not going to be called _high. They're going to be called they're not going to be called _high. They're going to be called they're not going to be called _low. They're going to be called _high. I'm going to create a new group because it's going to be my high polys. And this is the first true high poly that we're going to have. Because remember, all of these guys are a decimated version of what we actually want to bake down. Because the ones that we actually want to bake down are going to have more detail. And therefore, they're going to be, we're going to have cleaner bakes. Anyway, so after that long explanation, now we can think about what we're going to do here with the horns. And here's again where we are going to need to solve this puzzle. First of all, the horns are asymmetrical. This horn has bandages, and this horn has a bit of armor. That means that we're probably going to have to retopologize them in individual ways. However, they're not asymmetrical on the top part of the horns. Like on this, probably from this section up, they're pretty much the exact same thing. They might have slightly different details, but they're the exact same element. So in the spirit of working as little as possible, we are going to use a symmetry for this guys. We're going to start with this guys right here. We're going to make them live surface, and we're going to start retopologizing. We're of course going to turn world X on. I'm going to go to the highest point I can think of, which is right around there. The bandage is the one that goes higher, so we're going to use that as a reference point. I'm gonna bring this down here. The horns are not perfectly circular, as you can see right here. They have like a border right around there, and then they're quite flat on this side. I'm still gonna add an extra edge loop right there. Another one right there, another one right there, another one right there. I'm gonna bring this down so they follow or are a little bit closer to the bandages. And probably one more here and one more here. I'm gonna count how many we have, and we have 18 faces. Of course, it's 9 and 9. I don't want 9 and 9, so we're gonna add one more line. Where? Probably like here. Again, we just start smoothing things out so that we get the best possible distribution. As you can see, it's working quite nicely on both sides of the elements. I'm gonna follow this like sharp lines that we have right here. So it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this is one of the other assets that I'm really debating whether we want to smooth it or not. I know we can, but it's gonna be tricky because we have more assets. We have the bandages and we have the armor. So sometimes you might want to already be like thinking about the high resolution things at this point. For now, I'm just gonna keep it low poly, and we'll see if we need to do it or not. Now, one of the things that you're gonna notice as we go higher and higher into this mesh is that we're not gonna need as many polygons, right? Because the surface or the volume that we have up here is not as big as the one that we have down here. Here, for instance, we can already reduce that volume. Seems like I added an extra line right there, so we might need to add one extra line right here. Smooth this out. And there's going to be a point, probably around here, where a triangle might be worth it. There we go. That triangle is going to keep things a little bit cleaner, and we can continue pushing the volume up. And then here again, it might not be a bad idea to have another triangle. So it's probably going to be... Let me clean the dots real quick. There we go. I'm just going to extrude this out. And there we go. It's probably going to be a triangle right there. And we're probably going to have two triangles here. 1 and 2. Right? Because we're getting to a point where we don't need all of this geometry to capture the silhouette. I do want to try and keep a center line. Because as we've mentioned before, center lines can be really helpful. So as you can see, I'm trying to keep the center line right there. And on this side, that, okay, that's not the most perfect pointy bit, but it works. And there we have it. Cool. So at this point, things are going to start changing. Like that's pretty much as we can save ourselves. So I'm going to get rid of this thing. And I'm actually tempted to just separate this, so just mesh and separate so that we can work them independently. We know that they're going to keep roughly the same amount of geometry, but we need to talk about how to handle this sort of stuff. So first of all, the thing that we're going to need to do is we're actually going to have to combine these things. We sculpted them separately when we were doing them inside of ZBrush for our high poly, but for bake purposes, we actually want them to be like together. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select all of these elements and I'm just going to combine. Okay, these are going to be the new Thyros horns right here. Oh. Just middle mouse and drag. Let's bring them all the way to the top so they're closer to the head and everything else. There we go. Delete history, very important to remove any empty groups, and that's it. So now this is going to be my light surface. Let's start with this guy right here. This is the easy one. So for this guy, I can already see that this is going to be pretty much like 2 extra like edge loops, 2 more lines right here that we're going to go until we get really close to the base of the armor bit. And then what we're going to have to do is we're going to jump to the armor, okay? So we're going to bridge this, and we're just going to ignore the fact that they're 2 different pieces. We're going to retopologize them as if they're just one single element. This technique only works if you're never going to take the piece out of the other piece, right? So if we're never going to be separating the, what's the word? The horn from the armor bit, then this will work. Otherwise, it will not work, okay? Because, of course, it's not as clean. This will, though, one of the advantages of this technique is that it will give us a really clean effect. Now, one thing I'm noticing here, as you can see, especially when we get here, is that we might need a little bit more resolution to really capture the roundness of this thing. So we're going to have to do some reduction and some like tweaks right here, especially for instance here. We definitely need a little bit more like elements to really capture the armor bit. Okay. So that's perfectly normal because the shape of the armor bit is slightly different than the shape of the horn. So that's why I'm creating this nice edge loop. It's going to capture the edge of the horn. Now here, some of the faces can like combine or can like attach themselves to the next one fairly easy. Some others, like this one, we might need a triangle. That's fine. We know triangles are not bad for us. So this guy's perfectly fine. Fine, triangle. I think I want to go here and keep that a triangle, here, and triangle. And that way we get this. Here's where I'm questioning, and we can do the test. This is what I would normally do when working on this sort of things. Like I would finish the low poly, see if I can like smooth it and get a nicer effect. And if not, this is what we're going to get. This is what we're going to be working with. It's very common. I've been playing a little bit of God of War Ragnarok lately, and it's very common to see certain assets be not as high poly as others. So the horns, in this case, since they're not as important as the face, it would make sense and it's justifiable that they might not be as high poly as others. Now, these guys right here are going to be a little bit of a pain because we need to capture the silhouette, right? A little bit of list, something like this. So that's 6. I always like using even numbers. There we go. So that's 6. Then here, for instance, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's move this back. But it's such a small detail that I don't really care if we don't capture it perfectly. Unless there's like a shot where the character is gonna be like placing it on his horn and we want it to be like super precise and stuff. That's where we would need to worry. Here I'm gonna add a triangle. And the reason I want to do that is just want a quick connection to that specific place. Same thing here. Like let's add one of our trick like simplification things. Like this. There we go. Triangle there. As you can see, things are getting a little bit complicated here, but we need that amount of resolution for the for a proper what would be the word? For a proper capturing of all of those details. Here, the extrusion is probably going to be our best bet, but then move it around because we do need to capture all of this. This is where things can get a little bit tedious. Go. There we go. Go. There we go. I'll just fix all of this vertex right here. UVs for these things are also going to be quite complex. That's why when you see like games and stuff, nowadays a lot of this sort of like assets are not hollow. They have like a cap and there's just overlap because it saves a couple of polygons by not having to do exactly this thing that I'm doing right now. I'm going to make this a triangle as well. Again, not worried about triangles. Why? Because it's a thing that's not going to deform. Not even the horn. The horn will never deform. If the horn is deforming, we're probably doing something wrong. It should be a hard surface sort of thing. There we go. As you can see, this keeps going down. Here, you can see that some parts like this, there's a little bit more depth to it. If you want to be super precise about that, you might want to capture that depth as well. So, for instance, here. This is already telling me that we might not be smoothing this particular mesh. Because if we do, it's going to be really heavy. It's becoming quite heavy already. with all of this detail, it could become way, way more heavy. I would rather just go and add a couple of extra edge loops here rather than smoothing everything else. So for instance, just adding one more edge loop right there, maybe adding one more edge loop right there. See how smoother the horns are looking now? That might be a better solution rather than smoothing everything, because we're also going to lose a lot of the sharpness that we just captured on the little like link and stuff. So let's just take a quick look at how the element looks. Of course, we're going to do a mesh display soften edge. This is what we will see in game, and I think it's fair. Like it looks fine. It captures what we want, and it's doing the sort of it's fulfilling the sort of goal that we want or that we have for this particular piece. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I'm gonna stop the video right here because we're already at the 15-minute mark. I want you guys to give it a shot and start moving with this, because it's definitely gonna take a while. And in the next video, I'll just continue working on this piece. We're going to continue working on the details here of the horns. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next video.